Good morning. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter, your consciousness transformation and ascension guide, originator of Trinity Energy Progression, and co-originator of Ascended World, bringing you this week's Living the Shift. Oh, that's a mouthful. So I've been a little bit on hiatus here offline for a while from Living the Shift, not from Ascended World, because I was on vacation, and I really needed it. It was really nice. The importance of getting away from our own environment, getting out of, it's funny because I do whole retreats and all that kind of stuff, and so that in a way it's a vacation itself, but it's not, because I'm working and helping others do the same thing. So when we go away, we get out of our environment, our everyday environment. We tend to allow ourselves to get into a different space than we're used to getting into, right? So what I was experiencing was, back in October, I held a retreat in Orcas Island in the San Juan Islands up in Washington, and we took a whale watching tour on while we were there with the group, and saw some humpback whales. And it was funny because my husband and I were going to Maui in January, and we didn't know this when we had planned all these trips, and I had planned the retreat and stuff. But anyhow, what we found out when we were there was that the humpback whales there in October were getting ready to migrate down to Hawaii for December, January, which I thought was really cool, because I was like, oh well, these whales will be there when we get down there. So it was interesting because from then I have just been getting hit with whale energy over and over and over and over again, right? So let's talk a bit about messages and just being aware now. And Sarah and I do the Wonderland course, the program, and one of the courses that we do is on guidance, and that everything is a message, hidden messages and everything. And that's coming from the perception that we create our own realities for the individual experiences that we desire to have. And so in doing so, of course, everything is just a message back to us to remind us what we've forgotten. So what happened was the whales came in. It wasn't, of course, just for me. It's always for collective and who's there and who's even not there. And what happened after that was, I was so touched. It was funny because I had this huge, and I've seen whales before. I've gone whale watching before, but and I've had such connection with them before. But this was a completely different level, where I felt like, they're actually holding space for us. And then I was like, yeah, you want to say for me, but it is for me, and it is for us. Like, we think we're holding space for the whales. Excuse me. But then the reality is their energy is so big. They hold such a huge amount of energy and physicality here in the 3D. They have such an open communication, an open method of keeping connected and connecting, that we are being held in space by them, and it's a much purer, more accepting, whole, love-based space. So it was interesting that hit me then very, very, very clearly. It was funny, the mother and calf had been hanging out at the surface and doing some odd stuff that they don't typically do, apparently. Anyhow, and so ever since, from October through going to Hawaii and last week, I kept on having these dreams of the whales, and at first they'd be sort of far away or off in the distance, and as the dreams progressed, they got bigger and bigger and closer and closer. And the last dream that I remembered before going away was this one where they were all around, and I was in this area where they were studying them, and they weren't confined, but they would come in every day and they would study them. And so I had taken a group on a retreat, and they had brought me in. And so, good morning, Gloria. So they brought me in, and to look at all the whales, and there were humpbacks and orcas, and there were dolphins and all different kinds of sea animals, and it was incredible. And they were like, oh well, and I was like, maybe I should go back and get the group in this stream. And they're like, yeah, well, the fastest way to go is not walking around the peninsula, it's just going through the water. And I just hesitated in the dream of, and the whales were right there. I was like very nervous about getting in the water with the whales, which was really interesting because I've just always been so passionate about sea animals. I almost went into marine biology years ago. But anyhow, so in the dream, I got right up into the water, but came to like this sort of this sandbar and then wouldn't go past it, or I hurried past it or something like that. And that sat with me, but I knew that there was something that was sort of blocking me from allowing that energy to really fully permeate me. So before I went to Hawaii, and I was aware that January is in the midst, the height of the humpback whale migration season when they're there for calving and breeding and stuff. So, I was like, okay, so whatever is to be completed, I felt like it was like a cycle that started in October that was to be completed while I was there in January. I went down there and it was incredible. I have done so much whale watching in my life, but this was like a completely different level of whales were everywhere. And the second day we were there, my husband and I went on a whale watching boat. It was a small pontoon boat. I mean, we didn't even need to because like literally because we had an ocean view from our villa and we could see whales every time we looked up, right? But anyway, we went on this pontoon boat and it was just crazy incredible. Within 15 minutes of leaving on the boat, there was a calf and the mother, and the calf was playing, and then the calf got interested in us and started coming over, and then the mother came between them to check us out. And then there was a male, what they call an escort, that was with them, and they came right up to the boat, like right up to the boat, like right up to me. And it was so funny because I didn't even think about it till after, but about how in the dreams, I had like kept it to a certain distance, right? But the second day I was there, that whale came right up to us, right? And not only that one, those three, right? They came right up, and I have pictures, and literally the mom was literally like maybe 5 feet away from me, if not even closer. I could have leaned over and just touched her. But that happened so many times, and the water was so clear. You could see the entirety, the enormity of these beautiful, beautiful creatures. And so they, and we're on this little pontoon boat. And they would come up, and like then we had others throughout even that one whale watching thing, which is like 2 hours, I think 2.5, because we ended up getting what they call mugged, because those three in the beginning kept us for a while. They kept on just swimming under the boat, coming up to the boat, swimming next to us, and we have to allow them a certain space before they can start the motors and stuff like that again. So anyhow, we had that happen several times throughout that several hours that we were out there. And it was just crazy incredible, the energy of just this overwhelming. I mean, I had tears. I cried when that first happened. Well, then through the course of the week, the 9 days I was there, every day was almost like that. Like I saw whales breaching all the time. I went scuba diving, and I think that was 2 days after I went on that first whale watching thing. I came up from first of all, going into the water, scuba diving with all those whales around was constant symphony of the whale song in the water. You could hear them talking to each other. You could hear the communication. You could feel it passing through your body in the water. It was incredible. In fact, I came up from my first dive that day, the first day that we dove. I came up from my first dive. I literally got to the boat, was taking off my fins and my mask, getting out, and I look up, and a humpback just fully breached, like maybe 150 yards from me. It was crazy. So, or closer. So anyhow, that's what I'm talking about. The energy just completely pervaded everything. And being in the water, like we heard that all the time. So I kept on tuning into it and saying, okay, so I understand and I feel a part of this symphony and this multi-dimensional, like holographic communication, right, is going on. And I didn't try to analyze anything. I didn't try to get clarity on it. I just said, well, let me have clarity as it comes, and let it be easy or whatever. But it was just beautiful and calm and peaceful. And the whole time I was there, it pulled me out of all of the layers of the identity of myself to just being, right? Realizing the beingness of these humpback whales and the beings, turtles, sea turtles do always, but it's it stripped away a lot of things that I wasn't even aware of I had on, right? So I did spent last year doing a whole bunch of time taking off metaphysically these layers of shields and presentations and coverings and masks and whatever that I'd held, and then knew that there, of course, there was still more to explore and release, but it was almost like that stripped away a whole bunch more, right? That I wasn't even aware were there. So what happened was, by the end of the 9 days I was there, I felt so free, so at ease, so just present. More so, and that's a lot because I feel pretty present most of the time. So I just felt like so present in such a different way. And the inner voice came in so much clearer. Right now, if you look at whale energy, what that's all about is listening to your inner voice, right? Connecting your consciousness within the depths, within the depths or the heights, depending on how you want to look at it, within the depths to here in the 3D, and letting it all integrate seamlessly in a holistic way. That's what the whale energy is about, because think about it, the whales go to the depths of the ocean and they also come to the air, and they're part of the air as much as the ocean. So it's both. It's the and the water is very representative of our consciousness, right? And the spreading of our consciousness. And the air being very physical here, very integrated. And so that was really, what was presented to me. And I realized there were things that I had thought I had been listening to, but I had been listening to through the filter of of different layers of expectation, of identity, and stuff like that. And I hear my phone ringing over here, and it's sitting on the floor, and I can't even get to it while I'm sitting here because I forgot to turn it down. I forgot that I even had it in the room. But anyway, speaking of communication, but the thing was, when I came home on Sunday, like was today Thursday, I spent the first 2 days fighting myself from putting those layers back on. Because what happens is we get back into our day-to-day routines, we get back into our normal environments, and we don't realize that even when we go away on vacation, or, we get to leave it behind, that we, sort of leave some things at the door. And then we try to put them back on, and they tend to be just roles, expectations, the way we interact with others. And then what happens is that inner voice starts to get filtered out, and then it becomes muffled. So that's the key. That's what I want to talk about. That's what I'm talking about today is, are we really listening to our voice? And it's really challenging because think about it. In the past 2 years now, right, we have been pretty much a majority of people have been in their home environment a majority of the time. Now, one thing that we've done before was avoid the things that were difficult or conflicted and stuff like that. And then, and we would never be home, right? Then we put ourselves in a place where we're always home. And so we saturated ourselves in these roles, right? In these jackets of these filters of identity, these filters of roles, these filters of expectation, and sort of sometimes we get lost in that familiar environment because we forget the perspective of our home environment is such a very small part of our world. And we think it's a huge part, so we let it be the main part. But then what happens is often, and what I have seen happening with a lot of people this year, is guidance is coming in to really change direction, to really be truly who you are, to really get over the obstacles that have held you back in the past. And many that I know are just saying, why, or how do I do it? I'm not getting clarity. I don't know what to change. And yet, the habit is, if we don't change our environment ever, we lose that. We lose, for example, think about the things you have, like, say, hanging on the wall in your apartment, your room, your house, whatever. I mean, how often do you really look at them? How often do you really see what's there until it's removed, and then you're like, well, something's missing. That looks really weird. It looks really open, but you don't really look at it, Or if somebody changed something out and you didn't even notice, because we get blind to what we see all the time, right? So if we're in the same space and we're doing the same thing all the time, we lose perspective on what is what messages are clearly, because then we just filter it through what we're seeing all the time. We filter it through the same, say, if we look at the color spectrum, we filter it through blue all the time. So if we want to see a red, and we're filtering through blue, we're always going to just see purple. And we're never going to see the red in its entirety. You understand what I'm saying? So, because red coming through blue would be purple. That's what I mean by that. So that's what we do. So the key is, if we get out, and many are, still very hesitant to get out and about and whatever. It's a big world out there. The world is still moving on. And it's important for us to get to a place of allowing ourselves to do that, allowing ourselves to get out and live again, right? But more so is get out of our environment in a somewhat regular basis and get some variety, so that we can, even if you go to the park, even if you go for walks, my husband and I walk every day in the park behind our house, but, even that becomes repetitive. So then it's, well, where else can you walk? Where else can I explore that gives me a new perspective, that gives me a new environment, a new way to look at something, a new opportunity to see something new or see something that's in front of me that I haven't seen before. Because I will tell you that this week, weird to me that it's Thursday because I feel like it's like Monday or Tuesday, has been so clear. So it's been it was clear because as soon as I got home, and I talked about this on Monday's Ascended World with Sarah C. Gavagnoni, I got triggered for no reason, but I realized it was me fighting those jackets of, filters in that home environment that I had not even realized I had put on. So it was this friction of, no, this is the pure state of listening, right? Because that's that whole whale energy. And my commitment was, I'm bringing you home with me. I'm bringing this communication, this holographic communication home with me, so that I'm remembering it and letting myself hear it differently and clearly, because I feel like we've gotten sort of lost in the rote of just dealing with, and yes, it's a presence in itself, but it's just dealing with day to day of fear-based world. So the key here is give yourself some change of scenery. Give yourself a breath of fresh air. And it doesn't have to be a huge vacation. Like I said, just go to a park. I know it's wintertime and it's cold. Bundle up. Wear some thermals. Go to some quiet place. I'm not, I want to say a mall and stuff, but that's not quiet and that's distracting because then you want to go shopping. Go someplace, a museum. Oh, an art museum. Those are great because they're slow paced. You can just sit in one place. Find an area where the art just talks to you, right? Talks to you. Listen to what I'm saying. Talks to you in a way that opens up something in you. Go to an art museum. Go someplace. Go to a library. You don't even need to read. You can just sit there. Or walk up and down an aisle and see what talks to you. Give yourself opportunities to talk to yourself in ways that you haven't before. Because I will tell you that this week alone, even though I feel like I've rushed through this week because I returned from Hawaii on Sunday night and jumped right into working Monday morning and doing the Ascended World with Sarah. And it's all about this. It's funny how freshly I can see things. And I have, in the past 48 hours alone, gotten some huge chunks of what I feel like is guidance of the things that I might have missed before because of judgment that I held through the filters that I was holding at home. Excuse my yawn. So, I was like, okay, well, I get this direction. And when I was in Hawaii, wow, the messages were so clear and so in my face. So clear and so in my face. And then I came home and I was like, well, I don't know what to do with them because of that friction of me trying to put on at some level that comfort of those jackets, the roles, the expectations. And so then when I sat in meditation and just said, no, I'm committing myself to that whale energy, to that communication, to that immersion, I'm committing myself to stay there. And when I go into meditation, that's where I go right now. And then yesterday, bam, 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 I had like 5 big revelations sort of come in. And I was like, oh, I see what I've been trying to show myself. So that's the whole thing. We get to this place where we're not sure, or we say we want guidance, but then the guidance comes in and it's uncomfortable because it would force us to take off those jackets, right? Force us to take off those shields, those expectations, those identities. And then the ego says, no, not today. I think I'll wait. I'll do that next week. It becomes very easy when we get comfortable in our own environment. And because we'll come up with 1,000 excuses why not to. And the number one being, oh, well, I don't want to get sick or I don't want to expose myself. All fear-based stuff. Again, forgetting that transcendence is easy, that we can coexist in the same space as sickness and darkness and limitations and stuff around us and be transcendent to it and unaffected by it by holding the vibration. I live it. So we get lost in all the excuses. Well, I can't do that because I don't feel well. I can't feel it because I can't do that because it's cold. I can't do that because of this. I can't do it because of that. And then when you stop doing that and just saying, well, how can I do this? How can I do it? I can do this way. I can do this way. If I allowed this to happen, how would that look? When we start playing with that, that's the important part. So that's all being really present with ourselves and allowing. I set myself, and I talk about this a lot in my meditation, to opening my heart to all possibilities, right? In allowing the manifestation of that intended creation. Opening my heart to all possibilities in the manifestation of the intended creations, right? Those are the things that I would like to create for myself. So that's what we want to focus on. Focus on this commitment. Commit yourself today to hearing your inner voice. Allow yourself to, find some music that has like whale music in it, like whale sounds in it, and just tune into that, even though it wouldn't be fully current, but at least it would get you back to that vibration. So get to, how do you, commit yourself to seeing it differently, hearing it differently, and allowing yourself to do things differently. Even if you just change your environment for a couple hours, try it for a couple hours a day, if you can, at least in a week. And then make sure you journal about what it is you might have just perceived, even if it's just, oh, the birds were doing, it's funny, I saw a friend of mine posted something yesterday about like coming out of work and all this swarm of birds were just sitting around her car and there was no other car. It was just really funny. I was like, oh, there's a loud message for you, right? And so, because it was obviously very much just for her. And so like that was just an environmental message, right, to her. So that's what we do, is like when we give ourselves the opportunity to see things differently. If you saw a different kind of bird, a different kind of animal, different kind of, like, look at how the people around you are acting, when you go to these different environments. Get out of the fear of, oh, I'm uncomfortable, I'm cold, I'm afraid of getting sick. Like, move all that to the side and say, okay, if I was just here to be present, what am I seeing? What if I just open my heart and be present here and relax and let all of that chatter go? Right? That's the basis of meditations and stuff like that. And I just sit and listen. So listen to your own whale song, because our expanded self, that's what it's doing all the time. The incredible part to me about being in Hawaii with all the whales and stuff was being in the water with them and hearing and feeling that communication that was constantly going on, even when they were out of sight. I could hear them when we were scuba diving. I could hear them when I was snorkeling. Anytime my head was in the water, I could hear and feel that constantly. You heard the clicking and the squealing and all that kind of stuff. And that's what your expanded self is always doing. It's always, always, always giving us messages back. So if we sit still and listen, or we change our environment and listen differently, then sometimes we stop being blind to what's on the wall in front of us all the time, because then it's suddenly a different picture. It's suddenly hitting you from the side, or you see something new on the side, or it gives you a breath of fresh something to allow a different perception to come in. And when you allow it, keep your heart open to looking at the possibility and saying, okay, if I allowed this, what would that look like? And, I can talk, take Sarah and I did the course on guidance. It's a great course on, self-guided course on looking at all the hidden messages, like seeing all the hidden messages in our faces every day and getting into the habit of seeing them, because then it becomes, to me, a fun game. When I was in Hawaii, it was like this repetitive energy that kept on coming up with people around me was a big message back to me of hang in there. Like, don't stop at the 11th hour. You got stuff that's coming. Keep going. Push through. And it was funny through other people. It wasn't even through me. And it was like, oh, well, look at that. That keeps happening. What's that a message for me to look at, And so I would journal about it. This is where we start connecting all the dots. So really, that's the commitment. Commit to yourself to looking at it differently, to getting the opportunity to tune in differently and listen differently, and to get a different perspective and to see things in a different light, in a different color, in a different texture, in a different feeling, so that you might get a more holistic view of something you might be missing before, that's sort of hiding behind the things that you're being blind to in every day. All right? So that's it for today. Thanks for joining. This is Angela Coulter signing off with this week's Living the Shift. Have a great one. Bye.